I used to ask people, what do you think selling is? And what I found is nobody answers the question the way this guy defined it. So I don't ask that question anymore because it just irritates people. So I'm just going to tell you what this guy said. And I'm going to tell you what I've applied to my own life that's had such a huge impact. He said, selling is the art of reducing the customer's fear of making a mistake. And if you can figure out what your customer's afraid of, fear less, those rates will increase dramatically. And so I want you to think about the last time you made a major purchase, a house, car, I don't know, refrigerator, whatever's a big deal for you. So what was the last big purchase that one that was, oh, there's a lot of money. What was the last big purchase you can think of?
I guess car, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of vehicle did you end up buying?
Toyota Corolla. So,
okay. So when you bought your Toyota, you probably had some specific criteria. Now, you didn't probably think of them as fears, but you had something that was really important to you, or maybe a couple of some things. Is that true? Like, it had to have good gas mileage, or it had to be in a certain price range, or something.
Yeah. Good value.
It had to be a good value.
Yeah.
All right.
Reliable. That's
okay. So reliability and value were important to you.
Yeah.
Right. So did the Corolla check the boxes for you for reliability and value before you bought it?
Wait, say it again. I'm sorry.
So when you decided to buy a Corolla,
yeah.
Did it turn out that you really believed that that car would be reliable and would be value?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if you had found, let's just say, for example, I'm just going to pick one that has a reputation for being unreliable. Let's say you had found a Jaguar, a used Jag that was about the same price as your Corolla, but they're known for being unreliable.
Oh, yeah.
Did you purchase the used Jag?
No, because the service perspective, it would be very expensive too. Exactly. I was breaking the money pit.
Right. So you would have been afraid to buy the Jag because it wouldn't check that box for you, right? And so the same is true with our customers. There are certain things that they're concerned about. I'm going to call them fears. They're afraid to overpay. They're afraid your system won't do what you say it will do. They're afraid it's going to be hard to use. You probably already know kind of the primary objections that you run into, or the things your customers are afraid of. But there are things that your customers are afraid of, right? And if you can make them not afraid of your solution, then the odds of them buying increase dramatically. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So what we're going to talk about today, this DISC thing, is one of the skills, it's one of the concepts that will help us to eliminate our customers' fear. Okay? And so kind of everything I try to teach is toward that goal. How do we make our customers more comfortable with us, less fearful to engage in our solution, whatever that solution is? Because your solutions, how much is your average sale? I think Eric said it was around 10 grand or something.
Yeah, around 12,000.
So if somebody's going to spend 12 grand, they need to be comfortable in holding that trigger, don't they? As opposed to, hey, here's a POS system that costs $600. You make a $600 mistake, you're still going to wear the same clothes. You make a $12,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go through a quick slideshow. All right. Do this. Can you see the white?
See it, thanks.
All right.
Yes.
So this presentation is called Increasing Sales by Understanding Human Behavior. And that's what DISC really is. It's a model of human behavior. All right. So I want you to tell me if this has ever happened to you. You're having a conversation, and it's an important conversation. It's with your boss or someone who works for you. It's with your spouse. it's with one of your kids, it's with someone who's important to you, and the conversation's going well, right? It's an important conversation with someone who's important to you, but the conversation is going well. And then at some point, you say something, and the person responds or responded in a way that caught you off guard. They got angry, they shut down, they withdrew, maybe they got sad, maybe they even cried. But you're sitting there thinking to yourself, what just happened? I said something and they responded in a way I totally did not expect. Has that ever happened to you?
Let me see. Yeah, I guess that happens to all of us. Yeah, absolutely.
That happens from time to time, right?
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Right. So the interesting thing is usually, not always, but usually when that happens, when we say something and get a reaction that's totally unexpected, it's usually because we spoke the wrong language to them. In other words, it's not what we said, but rather how we said it. Okay. And so my goal is that by the time we're done with this training on DISC, that will never happen to you again. In fact, if I were to tell you that, hey, you're going to be able to know how a person's going to respond before you even ask a question, would that be helpful?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, not necessarily what the answer is, but how they'll deliver the answer back to you. That would be helpful. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So this thing called DISC, D-I-S-C, again, it's a model of human behavior. And by the way, it's old, been around forever. It's over 100 years old. This is not new data. This is not a new concept. This is a tried and true concept. In fact, it's so old that all the patents, all the trademarks, all that stuff have fallen off. So it's public domain now. And so you may have been exposed to DISC in the past and not even realized that you were exposed to DISC. So, for example, have you ever heard of Myers-Briggs? And people will say things like, well, I'm an INTJ. Have you ever heard that before?
If you could repeat that, I don't think I quite got that.
Myers-Briggs. Have you ever heard of Myers-Briggs?
No.
Not familiar with that one? All right. Well, that's a very popular version of DISC. It's based on the same data.
Okay.
I've seen organizations turn this into animals. You're a lion, an otter, a beaver, or a golden retriever. All right. And so you may have been exposed to this, but in a different form. All right. And DISC really is simple. It's really just how do you respond to two questions? So I want you to imagine for a moment, you and I were just hanging out, having a cup of coffee, and we're having a conversation. And I say, hey, Nicholas, do you feel like, you're more of an outgoing person, or are you more reserved? And the first thing you might think is, oh, he means extrovert or introvert. And that's not actually what I mean. An outgoing person is someone who responds very quickly. They don't think things through, they just react. They're always ready to go. Okay? A reserved person is someone who contemplates things, who thinks things through, who makes decisions more slowly and carefully. So if I asked you, hey, do you think you're more outgoing or more reserved? Your first response might be, well, I'm kind of both, right? Or it depends on what I'm doing. And
it depends on the environment, yeah, and the calculated risk.
And that is absolutely true.
In a personal environment, it would be outgoing for sure, because you don't have to measure your words or worry about any of the repercussions versus business. It's wise to really analyze things and not just blurt out answers like somebody else I know that we've met. Yeah, so basically, it's not a matter of filter or anything like that, but it's just a matter of just interpreting things internally and then coming up with whatever you feel is the appropriate response. Otherwise, I don't think it's a great approach, especially in business, to really just blurt out answers like you said.
Yeah. So what
You
you'll
lose
find is
credibility
that
right away, especially if the
sometimes,
information you provide isn't solid, you know.
okay. Yeah. So sometimes you'll be more outgoing and sometimes you'll be more reserved. In fact, by the time we get done with this, you're going to realize you have some D and some I and some S and some C in you. We all do. Okay. But if you had to say, yeah, even if it's 51% to 49%, you feel like you're more outgoing or more reserved. I want you thinking about that for a second. And by the way, there are no right or wrong answers. Okay. So, for example, I like to go to sporting events. All right. And so, if I'm going to go to a sporting event, I prefer to go with someone who's outgoing. They're going to find their parking place. They're going to find their seat. They're going to go get their hot dog. They're going to get ready to go, and they're going to move through the process very quickly. Okay.
Mhm.
On the flip side, I have two artificial knees. Okay. If I'm being wheeled into surgery, I don't really want an outgoing surgeon. I'd like someone who's more reserved. The last thing I want to hear is, "Hey, wheel that dude in here. I got a tea time at 2 o'clock." I don't want to hear that, right?
Sure.
So there's not a right or wrong. It's just different. And different settings, different scenarios require us to be one or the other. But naturally, you feel like you're a little more outgoing or a little more reserved. If you had to pick, which would you pick?
Outgoing for sure. If
Okay.
you want to, label it the 51%, it's whatever amount to tip it over, more outgoing versus reserved. I would say outgoing.
Okay,
Generally,
perfect.
overall, if that's on
So,
average.
so that's the answer to the first question is then outgoing. And then there's a second question I would want to ask you. And that question is, well, do you feel like you're more of a task-oriented person or a people-oriented person? And again, you'd probably say, well, sometimes I'm task and sometimes I'm people, right? If I'm holding my grandson, I'm very people-oriented. On the flip side, if I'm trying to complete a project, I'm very task-oriented. All right. And so here's a kind of a litmus test that I think is a really good. Imagine you have a project at work, a team project, where a whole bunch of you have to work together to get something done. Okay. And the project is very important. You've got to complete this task, and it's got to be done on time, and it's got to be done on budget. And let's just say your team gets the job done, and they get it done on time, and they get it done on budget, but during the process, Bob quits and Susie gets her feelings hurt. If you're the type of person who would say, hey, you know what? We got the job done. We got it done on time and we got it done on budget. I'm sorry that Bob quit. I'm sorry that Susie got upset, but we got the job done. Then you're probably more task oriented. On the flip side, if you're like, we got the job done, but Bob quit. Look, they're crying right now. I just feel so bad for the people. You're probably more people oriented.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick, even again, if it's 51% to 49%, would you say you're more task oriented or more people oriented?
More task in that particular environment and work environment. You have to be accountable. Otherwise, you have to have compassion and empathy. But at the end of the day, if you're not task oriented and goal oriented and you don't achieve those, then you're not going to be around very long. That's why I'm kind of like I'm comfortable in my seat because I'm like calculating here how many things I got to do. So I'm constantly, my mind's very overactive, and I'm always looking to get to the next task and achieve that and keep going. So I would say tasks. There's no question about it. Yeah.
And I would agree. You are more task oriented. That's good. All right. So we're going to go ahead now that we know the answer to those two questions, we're going to talk about the 4 personality styles. And the first one, the D, is the dominant style. This was very high for me. Okay. D's are outgoing and task oriented, which is what you just identified yourself as. You said, I'm outgoing and task oriented. All right. D's are naturally the leaders among us. Now, they may or may not actually hold the title of leadership, but they own the situation. They control it. They will always influence their situation. In fact, if you're in a group of people and no one is leading, even if you're not supposed to be the leader, you'll just lead, won't you? You'll just take over because it drives you crazy that no one's leading, that you're not going anywhere. Does that sound about right so far?
Yeah, if you're not leading, the view's always the same.
Exactly. So D's are actually the smallest percentage of the population. Only 15% of people that you will meet are primarily D's.
Sorry. I apologize. 1 second, John. Oh, great. Thank you. That's for Howard, right?
That's for you.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have his swipe box.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
No worries.
By next week, I should have my own office, so then it won't be the situation.
All right. So only 15% of the population are D's. Now, in a setting like the one you're in, oftentimes you will encounter more than 15% of the people around you being D's because you're in a business environment. And so salespeople, leaders, managers, and to some degree your customers, there'll be more D's than 15% because they're company owners, leaders inside their organizations, okay? But they're the smallest percentage of the population. And I like to say the day you left home was the best day of your parents' life. Now, not because you're not a nice person, you are, but because the day you left home, they got their house back because you ruled the roost. You controlled what happened at your house, didn't you? That sound about right?
Yeah, let's put this way, it was a lot easier with me not being there than being there. So that's for sure. It's beautiful.
Exactly. So it turns out you have a secret fuel. And if you're getting this fuel, all is right in the world. Okay, you have energy, you feel good, but if you're not getting this fuel, quite frankly, it can really slow you down. And your secret fuel is getting results. Really like to check stuff off the list and get stuff done. You like to get results, don't you? And you would think, well, doesn't everybody care about that? Doesn't everybody really isn't that what drives them? Actually, it's not. All right. About 15% of you really focus on getting results. But just like all of us, you do have a bit of a blind spot or, a negative thing that goes along with your personality style. And for a D, your blind spot is that sometimes you can be very direct with your communication, even gruff with the way you speak. And so sometimes people get their feelings hurt because you're so direct. Remember when I said earlier, hey, have you ever had that situation where somebody got mad or they shut down? Okay, you're the ones who make people cry because they take it the wrong way. And you don't mean to, but sometimes you can be very direct with your communication. Does that sound like you a little bit?
Yes.
Yep. All right. And like all of us, you have something that you're afraid of. D's really, really do not like to be out of control. Your biggest fear is losing control. You would much rather be in control of your circumstances and surroundings.
Actually, if we fragmented that sentence, it'd be more accurate. My biggest fear is losing.
Is losing?
Yeah, I'm the biggest loser there is. Yeah, I hate losing. I'm never a good loser about anything.
So that tells me that you're also a very competitive person.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah.
With everything.
Well, I'm also competitive, honestly, to a fault. And a lot of us D's, and by the way, D is my second highest category. I'm actually higher in D than you are. So I get it. This makes sense to me. And I hate losing too. In fact, I'll talk about that a lot as we move down the path. And Nicholas, how can we win today? I want you to win, right? Because when you win, I win, right?
Then you got my attention.
Now, I don't know if this is your thing or not. Did you ever watch the original Star Wars movies, like when we were kids, the ones that came out?
No, I'm more of a Marvel guy. I'm totally
You're more of a Marvel guy? All right,
well,
well.
with them. Yeah, I understand the concept.
Did I say, are you political at all? I don't care which side of politics you're on. Are you political at all? Like, do you know anything about our past presidents, even like recent ones? Okay.
Definitely.
So I tell you what, instead of the Star Wars character, I'll say, can you think of a president recently who had this personality style? Doesn't matter what politics you are. Doesn't matter whether you're honest or dishonest. Doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. Who's somebody who had this very task-oriented, strong personality style?
Oh yeah, the last president before him.
Yeah, Trump, right?
Trump wasn't too shy. Yeah,
was a clear D, very, very high D. All right. So I think sometimes it helps us to see what personality styles look like, because we can go, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. All right. So Trump would be an example of a D.
For sure.
All right. The next style I want to talk about are the I's. You look like you had to do something. Are you back with me?
I just I got like 3 or 4 people deep that need some things. I'm sorry. I'm very transparent and honest, so we could appreciate the candor. It's just with everything that's going on with Eric and stuff, it's just kind of a little bit anxious, the nicest way to put it. So there's a lot of things coming at me and a lot of expectations. So I just it's okay. It's fine. It's totally cool. Just please continue. It's okay.
So we certainly won't go long today. Okay, we'll wrap up when it's time to wrap up. And for future ones, maybe you can be in a little more private setting where people aren't bugging you.
Yeah, I should have the I think by either after the holiday or even before, I should have my own office, so it should be good. But I hear you. Yeah, totally good. Yeah.
So the next style I want to talk about is the I's. Now they're referred to as the inspiring style. This was one of your lower categories, right? I's are outgoing and people oriented. All right. Sorry. And we are naturally the energy in the room. And by the way, I'm primarily an I. Okay, this is my highest style. So we are the energy in the room. I like to say we don't need to go to a party because we are the party. We are always talking. We are always the center of attention. Usually we're big hams. We like everybody to look at us. If there's a conversation happening, we want to be right in the middle of it. All right. And we bring energy and enthusiasm to our team. We're about a fourth of the population. So you're going to run into a lot of I's. Okay. Ironically, in the world of sales, now not necessarily tech sales, but all sales. If you just take all salespeople in all industries, about 70%, 70% are primarily I's. And it's not because we're better at selling, actually. We actually have some real chinks in our armor to overcome. But it's because we talk a lot and we have a tendency to be connectors with other people. And so at some point when we're kids, people go, hey, man, you're great at talking to people. You should be a salesman. And a lot of us just got stuck there because people thought it was a good career choice for us. All right. When I said the day you left home, that was the best day of your parents' life. Well, the day we left home, that was the worst day of our parents' life because all the fun left, all the energy left. It's kind of boring there now without us. All right. Our secret fuel is totally different than yours. Okay. Our secret fuel makes the least sense to the other groups. D's, S's, and C's scratch their head and go, really? That's your secret fuel? Our secret fuel is having fun. In fact, so much so that sometimes we have too much fun. Have you ever heard someone, for example, make an inappropriate joke like at a funeral? And you're like, oh my gosh, do you not realize you're at a funeral? Why are you? It's because they're an I and they want to have fun all the time, even if it's not appropriate. Okay. We also have a blind spot. And everybody knows about our blind spot. I want you to think about somebody that you know who's like this. Someone who's always the center of attention. That person probably has trouble staying focused. Okay. I's really struggle with staying on task. In fact, you've heard ready, aim, fire, right? So D's are ready, fire, aim. They're doing stuff. They're just getting it done. I's, we're ready, aim, talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this a little bit more. I mean, we will just get totally sidetracked and forget completely what we were doing. Right? Now, this one's interesting because there are so many of us who are in sales, but our biggest fear is the fear of rejection.
Rejection. Yep.
So the way that plays out in the sales world, we go out to a customer and we've just made a new friend. And so when it comes time to ask them to buy or not buy, sometimes we'll just keep talking and talking and talking, because if we ask them to buy and they say no, we just lost a friend. I know that sounds crazy to someone that's like you, who's primarily a D, but that's what I's think about. Okay, very people oriented. Now I'll skip over the Star Wars character one, but I will say that there's a president that we've had somewhat recently who was a very high I. You think about someone who was, I mean, always wanted to be the center of attention. I'll give you a hint. He went on the Tonight Show and played the saxophone.
Oh yeah.
Remember Mr. Clinton?
Who? I'm sorry.
Bill Clinton?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Bill
Yeah.
Clinton, very high I, right? And again, sometimes to an inappropriate degree, but always putting his foot in his mouth, right? We talk before we think, okay? That's the I style. Right. S's are the supportive style. These are the folks who are reserved and people oriented. This one was also low for you. You're naturally the nicest people you will ever meet. They are so nice. In fact, you know, when you came to work on this morning, Monday morning, right? And somebody said, "Hey, Nicholas, how was your weekend?" If they were an S, they actually cared how your weekend was. The rest of us say that because it's polite. Hey, how was your weekend? We don't really care how your weekend was, right? S's actually care, right? And they're fair and like Marines. They're no man left behind. In fact, they are very self-sacrificing. So, for example, let's just say that there was a group of us, just a group of people, you and I are in this group, and we're going to decide where to go to lunch. Well, if more than about 17 seconds of conversation happen and a decision has not been made, the D will make a decision. You know what? We're going to Mexican food. Let's go. All right? The I's will go, Mexican food. Sombreros, tequila. Yeah, it sounds fun. I'm in. The S might go, oh, wait a minute. You know, Mexican's my favorite, but Bob doesn't like Mexican food. We can't go to Mexican. Bob doesn't like it. Even if it's their favorite, they'll sacrifice themselves for the sake of someone else. Okay? They're actually the largest percentage of the population, which does not bode well for those of us who are in the sales world if we're not in this category, because that means we're going to run into a lot of people who are very different than us. About 35% of the population is primarily S. Okay? Remember we said the day you left home was the best day of your parents' life. The day I left home was the worst day of my parents' life. The day the S's left home, well, they never left home. All right? And even if they moved out of the house, their heart's still at home. They just love their family. And they have two secret fuels. And I promise these will make no sense to you because you're the opposite of an S, you're a D. Okay? Their two secret fuels are peace and harmony. They hate drama. And so if you got someone, for example, who's in your office and they're a high S and there's something tense happening in the office, you'll watch that person just shut down. They do not handle drama well at all. Okay? And they also have blind spot. S's blind spot is they really struggle to get started with something new. Okay. Ironically, they're great finishers. Once they've committed to a project, they'll work late. They'll be the last one out of the office. They're great finishers, but they're terrible starters. Now, for us as salespeople, the way that plays out is if you're selling to someone who is a high S, even if your solution is better than the one they have a difficult time making a new decision. Okay? They don't like to start new things. And it's because their biggest fear is a fear of change. They hate to change. So I'm gonna move kind of fast because we're getting close to the top of the hour. All right, forget about their Star Wars character. Think about president for a minute. We had a president who was a high S. You think who it was? I don't give you a hint.
That was a question. Wait, say it again. I'm sorry.
Who was a president who was a high S?
Probably Obama.
Oh, well, you were close. So the high S was Jimmy Carter. You remember Jimmy Carter?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Now, he's
the poster child.
You know what Jimmy Carter? Yeah, you know what he's doing right now? He's like 180 years old.
Yeah, at least
right now, he's out building a house for Habitat for Humanity. That's what he does in his free time. And if you think about Jimmy Carter, even people who hated his politics, okay, the interest rates were off the charts. Inflation was off the charts, but everybody likes Jimmy Carter. They're like, yeah, he was a terrible president, but he sure was a nice guy. Or, man, he was a great president, and he sure is a nice guy. Everybody likes Jimmy Carter because he is a nice guy. Those are the S's, okay? All right, C. Now, you're also very high in this style. C's are reserved and task-oriented. They're the cautious style. They are naturally the smartest people among us. And it's not because they're more educated, and it's not because they have higher IQs. It's because they don't trust the copy machine. They are so detail-oriented. I have literally watched a C put a piece of paper into the copy machine, press copy, take them out. And Nicholas, I've seen them do this. Hold them up and look at them and make sure they're the same. It's a copy machine. But they are going to check and double check and triple check. And because of that, when they give you an answer, it's correct. And it's not because they're smarter, it's because they checked and double checked and triple checked the answer. It's going to be right. Okay. They're about 1/4 of the population. So we're going to run into a lot of C's, especially in technical fields like IT. So technical salespeople like yourself, it's common to find C's working in this kind of sales. Very uncommon to see them in non-technical, non-detail oriented type of sales, right? So remember the day you left home, best day of your parents' life, the day I left home, worst day of my parents' life. The S's never left home. The C's, you guys, you purchased your parents' home and are leasing it back to them because it's the smart thing to do, okay? You actually have 3 secret fuels, and you're very high in this category. And your secret fuels are being correct, adding value, and giving quality answers. Does that sound like things that are important to you?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Now, so the C's also have a blind spot, and their blind spot is what I call analysis paralysis. If you have information about a situation, let's just say there are 5 different criteria that go into this particular decision, and you're either going to do it or not do it. If the first 4 criteria all say do it, but you can't find the answer to number 5, your instinct is to not make a decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. because you don't have all the information and you might be wrong, which is the biggest fear of a C, is making a mistake. C's really, really hate to make mistakes. Other styles like mine, I don't really care if I make a mistake. I'll just make a new decision. It doesn't bother me a bit. But for a C, it's terrible. C's hate to make mistakes. So here's where your Obama president came in. Obama was a high C. And if you think about the way he spoke, the way he presented himself, very detail oriented. Okay. So it is exactly, 11 o'clock your time. We are right at the top of the hour, and this was supposed to be 1 hour. So this is a good place to break.
If I didn't have a line waiting like at the deli at ShopRite on a Sunday afternoon,
that's okay. I have a meeting in a couple minutes anyway, so it works out good.
I got stuff writing down. Yeah. So maybe we could put a bow on this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to,
it's been
if
amazing.
you have any questions, if you have any, we're gonna continue this at our next time. But if you have any questions, write them down between now and the next time we meet, so that I make sure that you get your questions answered. Let's jump on the calendar real fast. You said after the holiday, so next week would be better, right?
Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I've 1 second. People are hitting me up on chat. Every single imaginable media, I'm getting banged from the side. So,
how are you? Mondays honestly are sometimes really good training days because sales are tougher on Mondays. How are Mondays for you?
All right, so I guess that'd be the 8th. Wait, Monday the 18th? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Make it like I don't know, around 10 again. I guess that's a good time.
Well, would 11 work? I've got a 9 o'clock my time. That's a 10. Would 11 your time work?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll send you a Zoom invite just like I did for this one, and we will go from there.
Oh, great. All right. Let me just get you back here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, great. Yeah. All right, John. This was very informative and helpful, and what's the other word? Makes it self-evaluating, I guess, too, because it makes me think a lot more, in a creative way, and internalize and how my different approaches are, my personality is the different complexities of that. So it's great. Yeah, it increases the awareness for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So as we move down the path, we'll talk about how these different things play into the different styles and how to communicate. So we'll have some fun with it. Have a great rest of the week.
Oh wait, hold on. I didn't get a straight answer in reference, and I thought it was going to be addressed today. I'm very results oriented, and I look at any type of feedback, the fine tooth comb. So having said that, there was a couple of answers that I had were very, not answers, categories on the disc that was very low. So I don't know if that's a reflection of inefficiencies or just or wait, I think I could answer that. Or it's more reflection of being, have the numbers augmented in different areas, which you can't possibly have, you can't have a consistency across the board because one extreme is going to actually have an adverse effect on the other, right? That's what I'm thinking. Right. Like on the personality, especially on the dominant side. Yeah.
And for you, it's
the. It would be conflicting otherwise. Yeah, it would be it would be illogical, I guess, to have like dominant, but then because as we go through this, you can't have dominant, but then have like a high score on dominant, but then have like an average or a little above average on cautious, because then it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go through and define your style specifically. We didn't get there today, but we'll get there on the next one. But
yeah, because I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure I'm not taking a hit and then you're going back to Ellie and it's like, where'd you find this guy type of thing, So I don't want to, I don't want to be folded under the bus type of thing,
No. So your style, the reason you're high in D and C and low in S and I is because you're very task oriented.
Sure.
Okay. So all of us are going to fall one side of the spectrum or another. So I, for example, am equally task versus people, but I'm extremely outgoing. So I'm super high in D and I, but I'm very low in C and S. Okay. You're very task oriented, which are the D's and the C's, but you're not very people oriented, which is why your S and your I are lower.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the general answer.
Okay, excellent. Sounds great, John. Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, thank you. I
Cool.
appreciate everything.